What's up? How you doing? Beautiful night tonight. Beautiful night. Monday, 11:30 in the p.m. and I'm out here having a fresh cup of Lipton tea. I love Lipton. Lipton to me is like the standard. Now I've been all over the place. I've had tea all over the place, including a very nice location in Disneyland that had tea. You'd go in there, pot of tea would come out, you'd order it from a menu, and then you'd order snacks and things. That's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But at the time when it did exist, awesome tea. But once again, Lipton is the standard. Delicious. Just perfect tea, perfect blend. So, quiet night. Few cars going by every once in a while. I think I'm the only one that's awake. My kids are gone up. They have school tomorrow. They need to get their rest. So I was thinking about a channel that I've been watching now for, I don't know, maybe like a decade. Haircut Harry. Haircut Harry. I love that channel. So relaxing. So it's a guy, I don't know if he's British or, I don't remember now if he's British or Australian. I know the accent is different, but he doesn't talk much in these things. He goes in, picks all these different barbershops throughout the world, not just in the US, he goes throughout the world. And he sits there, they cut the hair, and from my point of view, just watching it, it's very enjoyable. Like, I'm relaxed, takes away any kind of stress that you may have. I especially like when they, I see a little, like a bug, but disappears. It's like they've been told about this zapper. Oh, I got it. I got it. Anyway, so he goes around. And my favorite part is the straight edge, straight blade. They will foam him up. Sometimes they have warm foam from that machine. Put it nice and fresh on his face. Softens up, or as they say, softens up. I think it softens. There's no T when they say it that way, right? It softens up the beard. And then they, I love getting shaved by that the best. So I watch him. He goes Japan, he's been to Greece, he's been to Turkey, Mexico, throughout the US. So there's a place that he went years ago, Angel, place out in Arizona on Route 66. So was it last year? Last year I was out there with my family, my bride, my two daughters, and I said, let's go by that place. So we found it. Unfortunately, the guy retired, Angel, still alive. I don't know now, but he was alive back then, and we just missed him. I go in there, I'm looking around. It's like now it's turned into a gift shop. And I said to the lady, I said, is Angel in? And she's like, you just missed him. He was just here. Literally just here, like 2 minutes before you came in. He's probably down the street going home. And I was kind of like disappointed. And I said, all right. So we bought shirts and things like that, took some pictures in there. But this Haircut Harry, he was in there, I think, twice. And he got his haircut. He gets a little history lesson because the guy, Angel, is like 100 or close to it. So I just, I don't watch it every day, but every once in a while I will check up on Haircut Harry and see what's going on. Where's his last haircut? I'm a huge fan of barbershops. Huge fan. If a movie has a barbershop in it, I have to see it. Like, for example, Barbershop 1 and 2. Loved those two movies. Awesome. Something about it. Ever since I was little, my father would take me. He had a friend who was a barber for many years. Guy's still around. He's in his mid-80s now. And my father, when I was little, up until 5th grade, I went with my father to get a haircut. he would say to me, "It looks like you need a haircut." And back then, I did not want to get a haircut. I wanted my hair to grow. And he would always say, "Hey, let's go. I'm going. You want to go? Let's go." It wasn't even a question, do you want to go? It was like, do you want to go? Let's go. And I'd get in the station wagon, and we always went closing time. The key, he'd call him up first to make sure it was okay. And we would go down there, and then he'd see us coming, crossing through the parking lot. He would open us up, had a key. And then we'd sit, we had the place to ourselves. My father would always put me first, make sure the guy was sober, didn't have any crazy haircut. And then he was okay with it. Then my father would sit down and have a conversation. So when I reached 5th grade, I became friends with this kid. His name was Mike. We called him Michael for long. And in 5th grade, for a period of time, he sat behind me. And one day he came in with a decent haircut. And I turned around and I said to him, "Where'd you get that haircut?" Because he was from my neighborhood, so it had to be somewhere local. So I said, "Where'd you get that haircut?" And he didn't say. He said, "Oh, you like it?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I went to Joe's." I said, "Oh, all right, I know where that is." So the following week, I decided I was going to become independent, and I was going to go from that point on and get my own haircuts by myself, right? So I went down to Joe's, got my hair cut, pretty good, first time. And I continued to go for many, many, many years after that, actually until I was in high school. And my favorite thing about a barbershop, especially the older ones, I like the stuff on the counter and behind the glass. They always have like a little showcase. And they have different aftershaves, different, scents, stuff for your hair. All that stuff is in there. And my eyes just bounce from one thing to the other. I hate going to a barbershop when it's really clean. There's nothing to look at. So, yeah, while they're cutting my hair, my eyes want to be occupied. I don't want to be looking at myself. I hardly ever look in the mirror. I just cut my hair. I'm not interested in the, I'm looking at myself. Oh, you missed something here. Can you get that a little bit shorter? I don't do that. So I let them do their job. It's a professional. Do your job. So anyway, I went to Joe's for many years. Probably like 5 years. And then I noticed something. When you would tell them to cut your hair a certain style or a certain length, because I didn't like my hair too short. Now I don't mind it, but back then I wanted it longer. It was the hippie days. And they would cut it their way, they'd cut it, One day I was really adamant about it. I said, "I want you to cut it this way." And the guy looked at me, and I guess, he had to say something. He goes, "Is that okay with your mother?" And when he said that, I almost started laughing. Because I didn't come from a house like that. My mother was not really in charge of stuff like that, like haircuts. And so he was used to the Irish kids in my neighborhood who had mothers like that. And they would go down to the barbershop and say, "I gave him $10 to get a haircut, and you trimmed it a little bit only." And then the guy would say, "Well, he told me." And he goes, "I don't want your mother coming down here and yelling at me for not cutting your hair, the way she would want it." And I looked at him, I go, "But my mother's not that style. You should worry about my father doing that to you, not my mother." My father, was the one in charge of stuff like that. And even he didn't care about the haircut stuff. He said, "Go get a haircut, as long as it looked cut." But this guy was worried my mother would show up. So he cut it finally the way I told him. And then after that, I'm like, I'm thinking, I tell them how to cut my hair, and they do it their way. It's like, I'm not into that nonsense. So I stopped going. And I started looking for other places. So I had a friend in high school his mother had a cousin who owned a, I don't know what do you call these places, a beauty salon for old women. But he knew how to cut regular hair for guys too, So my friend said, "Hey, I know this guy, he cuts hair. He can cut our hair." So I said, "Does he know how to cut hair? Is he cutting only like, old women's hair?" And he goes, "No, he knows." So we went there, and he actually knew how to cut hair. He had the touch. He had the scissors. He even got a wash out of it. He had this, I remember the shampoo smelled like roses. You know how old people like that? He had roses shampoo. So he'd bring me in the back. He'd wash my hair. I'd come out with a towel. And he did a good job. So we went there for about a year. I remember one Saturday, we got there. You know, we usually would go like on a Friday, but that time for some reason we went on a Saturday, and he made the call. Guys said, "Come on in," and we went last customers. So he locked up. But as we got there were these two old women who were getting their hair done, finishing up, and they had the old, you know, fluffy. I don't know how you. It's like a wig-looking hairstyle. And I remember they said, "Okay, we're leaving. We'll see you next week." And I said, "What, they get a haircut every week?" He goes, "No, not a haircut. They get it combed every week, and then they watch how they sleep at night, so they preserve it." I said, "Oh." So then he cut our hair. So I went there for about a year. And then I started looking around, found another place that was okay, but it was far. It was far from my house. But I ended up going there for a few years, and then there was a place that, you know, in my neighborhood I would find, you know, somebody that, you know, I didn't really go to often, but they were okay. So I had one of those guys who was like a backup. So there's a barbershop in my neighborhood. I went once in the 70s, once in the 80s, once in the 90s, once in the 2000s. So in 40 years I went 4 times. And it's a good barber. I just didn't find it convenient. I don't know. I wouldn't go there, but I did go 4 times in 4 decades. So one time I was looking for a different barbershop. You know, I was always looking for something. I didn't really have a standard one, but I was looking for something old. And I was walking around Little Italy, and I spotted a guy who looked like he was probably 80. And I looked inside, and the place looked like it was about that old too. He had things everywhere. He had little bottles of cologne, little bottles of aftershave, the massage thing that they put their hand through and they massage your neck. They had that. And he had 2 old Italian guys sitting in the corner. They're just, you know, talking to him like neighbors. So I went in there and I said, "You got time for a haircut?" And I know that question was nonsense because the place was empty. So he goes, "Yeah, sit down." He had the Italian accent, you know, speaking English, kind of like a little bouncy sounding. And on the wall he had pictures of himself every decade of his life, starting in his teens. So there was one when he was like 18, then he was like in his 20s, his 30s, his 40s, and you're looking at the progression of a young man transferring his looks into an old man. Right, and I was like, "Oh, that's you?" He goes, "Yeah, that's me." And I saw the picture where he was like in his 80s, the last picture. So I sit down. He gave me a haircut, and it took a long time. I was in that chair for a very long time. I think I was in there for like an hour to get a haircut, just sitting there with him, you know, cutting and cutting and cutting. So I remember he had this brush. It looked like it was, I don't know, 50 years old. Looked like everybody from the neighborhood had gotten their hair combed with that brush. And I was like, "I don't know about that brush. I don't know if I want to get lice." But nothing happened. And haircut was okay. It was pretty good. You know, the guy had a lot of experience, but he was slow. He was slow. I started to get tired sitting there. So I said bye. It was the one and only time I went to him. I don't know if he was around after that. But I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid and I would go to Joe's. Joe was born in Italy. And I'd go down there, and he had a song that, you know, on the radio. The radio was always on an AM station. Back then AM played popular music, rock and roll, things like that. And I would go in there, especially in the summertime, you know, they had the door open, the breeze would come in, and on the radio, usually when I would get a haircut, the song Key Largo would come on by Bertie Higgins. and I love that song. Now when I hear it, it brings me back to those days when I was a kid getting a haircut. And the other thing he would have on, he had a black and white television set up on the top there by the door, and a baseball game was always playing. So, and how it sounds, the announcers are all relaxed talking about baseball. So I would go down there, and I don't know what it was, but that channel, that station that they had for music, every Saturday, I don't know what it was, but when I would go on a Saturday, they played Key Largo, and I love that song. I can feel the emotion of Higgins when Bertie Higgins. You feel it, you're like a heartbreak. He had the girl, fell in love with her, and then something happened, and the girl left, and so he wrote a song to, get her back. But you feel the heartbreak. You can literally, even though it's not you, for a brief 3 minutes, you can feel the heartbreak. I can feel it. And I'm glad, I have read that because of that song, he did get the girl back. Now, I don't know if she stayed. I think she eventually left, but at least he got it out of his system where maybe, he was still sad when she left, but he got a second shot. And that's the worst feeling in the world, when you fall for somebody and the relationship goes south and the claws come out. You'll be maligned, you'll be slandered, all in the name of getting even with you, as if they have to get even, I mean, it's over. But it's a heartbreaker, it's that you can't even describe that emotion. It's this feeling inside. It's almost like death. And so when I hear that song, I can feel it. I feel it. I said, yeah, he was really, really into this person, and then the relationship, ended, and he didn't want it to end. So he wrote the song, and such a good song, Key Largo. Yeah, we'll talk about how they would watch all these old movies together when they were together, and it's really cool tune. He's still around. He still performs it. Same hairstyle. Yeah, there's a few songs like that I can feel, and they make me feel the emotion that the artist is feeling or was feeling when he wrote the song. Another example of that is Dan Hill. Sometimes when we touch, I can feel that. And then another one is from Jefferson Airplane there, Marty Bally. There's a song, Hearts. I love that song. I've loved that song since I was a kid. You literally feel like you just broke up with somebody and you didn't want to break up. Hearts can break and never mend together. Hearts can be that way. I love that tune. Is everything all right? And everything about that song, the instruments that he chose, they just make you feel like there's heartbreak. I don't know, it's like crazy. Well, that's how you know a song is good, when you feel the emotion that the writer of that song was feeling. But yeah, there's songs that I hear from my childhood that I remember where I was when they play now. I will be brought back like a time machine to the moment that I first heard that song. I remember Let's Dance by David Bowie. That's I had a friend of mine, this girl, she was throwing a party. We were all young back then, so she invited basically the class. And generally I don't go to things like that. I'm not really into, I'm not a nightclub guy, I'm not a party guy, I'm just, peace, just quiet. And she invited me, so I said, you know what, I'll go. And for me, it was hard to get to because, I didn't have a ride, so I had to take the train, I had to take the bus, and it was, everybody was getting dropped off in the front by their parents, and I had to go through a whole process to get to her house. But I didn't say that to anybody back then. I just went, and I was there, a few hours, And all of a sudden I started noticing parents were coming to pick up their kids. And I was like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to start leaving too, because I don't want to be the last one. And then they're going to say, well, how are you getting home? So anyway, I started noticing I was one of the last ones. And then I became the last one. It's like everybody's parents came in a hurry and picked them up and left. So there I'm finding myself alone. And I say, all right, thank you for inviting me. I'm going to get going now. And I thought they were just going to say bye and I was going to leave. Well, the mother says to me, and where are you going? And I go, I'm going to go home. And she goes, who's coming to pick you up? I go, I'm taking the train. And she's like, oh, no. No. So her daughter's name, my friend's name, it was Kathleen. And she goes, Kathleen, grab your jacket. We're giving him a ride home. And I go, it's okay. She's like, no. Give me one of those. And I said, all right, I'm not going to argue here because it's just going to get worse. We get in the car, and they had, I think it was back then, it was one of those big Cadillacs. I remember being in the seat, and I felt like I had too much room. So I'm in the back seat, and in my car, my father and my mother, especially my father, you could not touch the radio, especially the volume. The volume was set by my father, and I think maximum was 3. You couldn't go higher than that. He'd tell you something on my head, I can't tell you what's going on in here, it's too crazy. And then my mother would jump in to add support, that it's too loud. So I was used to that. I thought every parent was like that. So we get in the car, we're driving now, and I'm trying to figure out, back then I had this crazy thing. I never wanted people to drop me off if they did drop me off. I didn't want them to drop me off exactly where my house was. It felt like that was like classified information, and I didn't want them to know where I lived. I didn't trust them. So I always would make them drop me off a couple of blocks further down, maybe in a different street, and then I'd walk back. So I was thinking in my head, I wish I let her, tell her to drop me off. So I said, all right, I got it. So all of a sudden, David Bowie comes on, Let's Dance, which I love the tune. That whole album was amazing. Modern Love is on there. A Little China Girl is on there. Or maybe it's just China Girl. So the song comes on, and, it's a decent level. It's about a 4. I'm in the back. I'm, doing my head like that. Kathleen reaches over, cranks it up to 10. And I go, oh, shouldn't have done that. Your mother's going to jump in now and, say something. I look over, nothing. 10 seconds go by, nothing. 20 seconds. I said, oh, it must be okay. Mother's driving around, doing her head like that, like she's enjoying it too. And I'm thinking, if this was my car, my father's station wagon, if I put it to 10, that thing would go off. My father would spin it off just to teach me a lesson. What are you doing here? It's too loud. So she had it on 10, and she had the whole song like that, and then the radio kept, playing loud like that until we got to my area. And I remember the wind. It was nice, mild wind coming in, and I was enjoying the song and the wind, and I'm there in the back with plenty of room. Yeah, so I said, is it only in my car? You can't put the volume higher than 3? And they were strict parents. For somehow I equated strict parents with keeping the volume low. Because that's how it was in my house. But anyway, so when it came time to drop me off, I made them drop me off 2 blocks away. And then they left. I thanked her very much. I said, thank you so much for giving me a ride. I appreciate it. And then I went back home. So that was the end of that. I will say a funny story. I was working when I was younger at a place and I would walk home. So I was walking home, and my house was pretty far from that place. It was about 4.5, 5 miles. So I'm walking home, and a car pulls up next to me. And one of the kids that was working at the same place I was working, his father came to pick him up. And he noticed me, so he told his father, pull over, maybe we'll give him a ride. So the father he's get in the car, give you a ride. He goes, where do you live? I go, I live down that way. So he goes, get in. At first I said no, but then I started to sound rude about it. So I said, okay, thanks. I get in, and I made him drop me off about 1.5 blocks away from my house. I didn't want him to, know where I lived. So he's the kind of guy that waits for you to go in. So he's waiting, he's not leaving. and I don't want to go, down the driveway of some stranger's house. Like, if they notice me, they're gonna come out yelling. So he's still there, and now I have to go to the back of this house that I'm stopped at, and then he'll leave. So I start walking down the driveway. I go all the way down to the back of the driveway. Now there's a light in the back. So they're in the back, some room in the back, the light's on, and I'm just waiting there. I'm waiting to see the headlights of the car that dropped me off move. So I'm back there for like 15 seconds, and then finally I hear the gas and I see the lights, and he left. And then I left and I went to my house. But I will tell a story about when I was in second kindergarten. There was this girl who, she was I don't know, she was part of a family that had like 7, 8 kids, and they all looked like each other, very similar. Extra blonde, and a similar looking, appearance, the face. They're all like duplicates of each other. And one day, because I used to walk home by myself, I was 5 years old, and back then it was normal to do that. I'm walking down, and one of the mothers, she's walking down with us, because I guess they lived somewhere down there too. And then when we got to the bottom of the hill, she turns to me, and she's like, "And where's your home?" And I was going to say, I was going to make it up. And just as the words are starting to come out of my mouth, this girl, right, she's like, "He lives right there in that house," and she's pointing. And I got all annoyed. I go, "Who told you to say anything?" And then I thought I was retaliating, and I go, "And she lives down there." And I pointed to where she lived. And the mother looked at me like, "Well, I already know that because I've walked her home before." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And but for me, it was always like classified information. I didn't trust people to know where I lived unless I knew you. If I knew you a while, then yeah, I'd be like, "Yeah, I live there." But if I didn't know you and it was like out of the blue, you're like, "Where do you live?" I would give you a general location within a 1.5 mile radius, but I would never be specific enough for you to find my house. And that's the way it always was. Even today, if I don't know you, I don't give you that information. Who knows what you're up to? So that's what happened. I learned a lesson that day that you can be strict with your kids, but let them have the radio loud, which is what Kathleen's parents were. They were strict, but they let her have the radio as loud as she wanted. And the mother was tapping away on the steering wheel, pop, 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 the David Bowie tune. My father would not, don't even think for a second that you were in charge of that radio. He would not allow it. Yeah, it's a different style, it's a different style, you know. Yeah, my father, like I said, would have it on 3, and I would say, say a song came on that I wanted to hear. I'd tell him, "Can you turn that up a little bit?" And he's like, "It's already loud." And then I'd see him reaching over and putting it up to like a 4. And he'd look in the mirror as if like, "All right, you satisfied?" And I was like, "Oh, is that it? Number 4, is that what you got it on 4 now?" But yeah, we did not, in my house, we did not mess with the volume, not even on the TV. My father would set it, and if it was good for him to hear, it was good for the rest of us. Yeah, they might as well have sold Zeniths that only went up to number 4 volume level, because that was the max. Mama's boy going home. He's gonna give his mom a kiss on the forehead. She's gonna pat him, give him a little pat on the head. I'll tell you a funny story. I had a neighbor. So when my parents would leave the house, we had a turntable in the living room area, dining room actually. And my mother did not let anybody touch that. She had her little, whatever that was, quilt on top, her little ornaments, the little things that she would arrange there, And if you touched it, she knew if something was off by a half inch, quarter inch, she knew you touched it. LAPD. So, I'm a music guy. I enjoy pretty much all types of music. Doesn't matter the genre, I enjoy it. I just one of those people, I like everything. So I would, my mother would say, okay, we're going to go. We're going out with your father. And, we'll be back later. And I would say, where you going? I want to know how much time I have where I can mess around with the equipment. So she's like, yeah, we'll be back in 3 hours. I go, okay, bye. So they'd leave. Immediately, I had the place to myself. I would go inside. I'd remove all the stuff from, as they called it back then, a pickup. It was like a turntable, but it was in the shape of furniture, those long things. I pop it open, remove all the stuff first from the top, right? And then I'd get my favorite records out, and I'd start playing them. And I'd play them, decent level. That's my opportunity, right? Am I going to play a decent level when I'm, with my parents at home? My father can only go up to 3. So I'd play, regular volume, and I'd start listening, be like AC/DC or something, or the soundtrack to Grease. And all of a sudden, the telephone would ring. So I had this neighbor. If he would hear loud music, he automatically thought you were suffering from some depression that happened and you were playing it loud to get over your depression. And when I got wind of that, I was like, okay, let me explain something to you. My generation and the generation that came before me, and probably the generation after mine, we like to play music a little bit loud. Not because we're depressed, but because we enjoy the music. And I said, maybe in your time, because he was an old guy, maybe in your time, if you played your little transistor radio loud, maybe that was because you had broken up with someone and you were sad about it. But for me, I play music loud, not crazy loud, but, decent loud, because I enjoy the music. I enjoy, hearing the music. And that's it. And he wasn't getting that. He thought, oh, I better call him up and see if anything's wrong. And usually he would call up and say, you want to go out and eat? And I'm like, I was thinking in my head, not really. I just want to, stay at home for a little bit, and I'm going to leave anyway. But yeah, he had that idea that if you played music a little bit loud, that you must be going through some emotional, maybe you broke up with a girlfriend, maybe you had some kind of argument with somebody. And I'm like, none of that is true. I'm just listening to music. Stop complicating it. So a lot of people, they judge you based on the way they feel during a similar situation. So I guess if he was feeling down, he would go when he was a kid and turn on the radio loud and listen to it. And that's not what's going on here. Ooh, that I don't know if that was lightning. That was crazy. That whole side of the sky lit up. One time years ago, I don't know what that was. If it's aliens, come get me. I'm looking for a ride. I want to see what you have for technology. But one time years ago, I was out here. I was recording, and a transformer somewhere in the neighborhood blew up. It was a loud boom, right? And I looked at what's going on. I felt like a missile dropped, and everything lit up. Like it was like a quarter second of brightness, and then it went down again. And then I was checking out my phone, people exchanging messages, and people were saying, what was that? Did you hear that? And somebody said it was a transformer. It blew up. I see, I think that's Mars. And that is, I don't know, I gotta get my my app out. My app will tell you. Yeah, that is, I want to say it the correct way. That's Uranus. I know now, they've made it like, they softened it up a little bit. They call it Uranus, but that's incorrect. Uranus is the way it's supposed to be said. Uranus meaning sky, and I guess in Greek, and I guess they call it that because it's blue. So I guess whoever saw it was able to tell it was blue from this distance, and they named it Uranus. Uranus meaning sky. Kind of weird, but yeah, it's very far. So a cloud cover is moving in. You know what it looks like? It looks like bed covers rolling in. I feel like they're coming to cuddle me up and put me to bed. And the moon, of course, is nice and bright tonight. Yeah, that looked for a second like an airplane, but it's not. So a few times when I was younger, I would be out early in the morning, like 5 o'clock when it's still dark out. I'd be up, and I would look at the sky, especially when you're in a dark area, which I was. And if you concentrate when you're looking up, you can see little dots moving across the sky at a high speed, going around. And what those are, they're satellites. So they're reflecting the light from the sun or the moon, and you can see them moving across the sky. And I remember when I was a kid at my friend's house there outside in the backyard, every night at the same time when I looked up, I could see it was some kind of satellite or an old rocket or something, but it was going across the sky. If you have a shortwave radio, when the International Space Station is, sorry to say channel, space station is going overhead, you can actually pick them up and hear what they're saying with your, I have a shortwave inside, you can hear them. Anyway, any more bugs? Nothing. This thing, when it's on and you grab it, it'll give you an annoying shock. When I first got it, I hit the button at the bottom here, and I went to grab it with this hand, and it gave me a nice shock. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I want to tell you what that is. I think that's just a star, but which one? I feel a nice breeze. Nice breeze. That one is it's a star in a double system, it says. And it is 872 light years from here. That's weird, you can see it that size and it's that far, because I don't know. Let me see. Let me do a little calculation here. A little bit good calculation. Alright, so 1H. So light travels in a 24-hour period 670 million miles. Alright, so let's see. No, that's not right. So 60, yeah, 1 hour. Hold on, let me do this again. So in 1 minute, light travels 11 million miles in 1 minute. That's speeding. Right? That's 1 minute. In 1 hour, yeah, that's an hour. So in 1 hour, light travels 669 million miles in 1 hour. Right? So in a day, light travels about 16 billion miles in 1 day. 16 billion. So Voyager 1 and 2, they're around that. So we're not 1 hour, 1 light hour, 1 light day away. Not yet. Think of the amazing just detail of that. So it's been traveling at 38,000 miles per hour, 24/7, never stops, ever since 1977, and it's not even 1 light day away. 1 light day away, it's not even that, even though it's been traveling all those years. So that's a day. And now yeah, it doesn't go that high, so I can't even do it. Saw a coyote again the other day, just roaming around, and we're in the city basically, we're in the city, and this thing is looking for food down here. Anyway, it's getting late. I think I'm gonna go up, get some sleep, and tomorrow they say a new day, but we'll be doing the same thing. New day, you're doing the same thing. Capiche?